Hello everybody from Morocco. It's a beautiful day here today, and yours truly is here in Morocco. Beautiful. Again, another day in lockdown. We've been here since the 17th of March and just kind of observing what's going on around the world. And I think it's very clear to me, actually, this is a moment of truth. A moment of truth. We will have to unveil the masks and realize the real eyes through real eyes. Not very good at effects, but anyway. I just want to give a few reflections on what's been happening. And there's a lot of scaremongering going, and a lot of panic, and a lot of a lack of leadership, I should say. What is leadership? Okay, in the rainbow we learn that if you see a job, it's yours. Leadership is about taking responsibility for your situation, for your environment, for your circumstances, for your future, for injustice, all those things. It's about taking responsibility. So I can only speak from my own experience. I don't want to involve myself in conspiracy theories. I don't want to involve myself in whether or not we've been visited by aliens, or whether we're going to be visited by aliens tomorrow. No, I want to be involved in the truth. And the truth basically is what will set you free. Okay, my name is Paul Denton, and I'm also known as Robin Denton. Okay, and it's no fault of my own. My mother and father decided that one for me. They called me Paul, but they named me Robin. So I got called Robin. Okay, and I've been through a lot of troubles in my own life, a lot of hardship and suffering. So I can only speak from my own experience, from my own perception of what I see around me in the world today. Okay? Now, first of all, let's talk about the corona thing. It's a real virus. It's true. But, here in Morocco, I haven't seen one person with coronavirus, not one. And we've had about, 8,000 cases, 10,000 cases, maybe something like that. But they locked the whole country down for 3 months. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize that, locking down a country for 3 whole months is going to hurt the economy. Now, the wisdom of that, whether it's good or bad, who knows? But what we do know is that it's hurting people, and people feel frustrated, they feel angry, they feel lost. And what happened in America is that you had a situation of a policeman who actually, in broad daylight, murdered a person of the opposite race. Now, I started the Africa Unite Party as a party, an organization, and as a movement, a global movement, by the way, is a movement to end racially motivated violence. Okay, I was actually looking after 26 dogs on the Mount Samuel in Jerusalem, and in Israel. I had to, shortly after I got, I went through a very, very tragic divorce, lost my family, lost my freedom, lost everything, lost my reputation, and now I know that for a fact that this was due to a certain kind of lobby, if you want to call it that, a neoliberal lobby in the UK government under Tony Blair. And it's not a one party thing like conservative or liberal or leftist or whatever. It's a cross party thing, and the same thing happens and applies everywhere in the world. So I call it fascism, basically. That's what it is, because the essential values of fascism is about destroying one's individuality, destroying one's integrity, destroying one's reputation, destroying one's family, whatever you hold sacred and dear. they will destroy it. If they target you, they will destroy you. And I can tell you from my own experience, that's what they did to me. They destroyed me. But out of the ashes from the phoenix, like the phoenix from the fire, I rose again. What gave me strength was, first of all, the truth. The truth is that I was an innocent man, actually, fitted up by the system. And basically thrown to the dogs. So all my so-called friends on the left, all my so-called friends who whatever political persuasion, abandoned me as soon as they knew the nature of the charges, was exactly basically my ex-wife falsely accused me of rape and sexual assault. And I can understand why she did it now, and we actually have reconciled, and I forgive her. She told me that she'll never admit it publicly. I know why she did it, and she was being threatened by the social services and the police that if she didn't comply and cooperate, they would take the children away from her. And as a mother, I think any mother would do whatever the police said, and that's what she did. So I don't really blame her, I blame the system. And the same thing is happening in America right now. It's a systemic racism, but I don't want to call it racism actually. I want to call it systemic fascism, and that's exactly what it is. When it comes down to it, people, they say beautiful things, but actually when it comes down to the nail, what do they really truly believe in their heart of hearts? Are they truly racist? Are they truly your friend? Are they truly, liberally minded and, saying all the right things and blowing all the right whistles? And a lot of these whistleblowers and people who say the right things are actually just fake. You can see it. Donald Trump exposed all of them. But the point is, we don't know if Donald Trump himself is 100% either. I'm sure that he was involved in some dodgy exploits with children. His mate Jeffrey Epstein, who is also mates with Bill Clinton and a few other high-profile people. We don't know what happened behind closed doors, and possibly whoever knows these things, but they're not saying it. But the truth will eventually come out. The truth will come out. But in the meantime, he could have reformed. Maybe he's not a pedophile. Who knows? Maybe he's not a sort of rapist, as some women claim. But put that aside for a moment here. It's not important. What is important is his decisions. Okay, his decisions as a law and order president, as he calls himself. Because believe me, that's going to come back to bite him on the ass one day, if he speaks falsehood. What is important, and this is why I made that video about what I believed was an injustice, and I tried to send another one called "The House Divided," and that was banned by Facebook. God knows why. They talk about free speech, but it's only on paper, isn't it? The true free speech is the ones who have the stick in their hands. They're the ones who are allowed to speak. And suddenly, when these protesters, in anger, they start smashing shops and looting and whatever. And I'm not condoning that kind of violent sort of behavior. By all means, I'm not condoning it. What I'm saying is that, for too long, the yoke of slavery has been on the neck of the oppressed man, whether that oppressed man is a black man, a white man, a yellow man, a green man, whoever man or woman. And it's a case of those who are in power and those who don't have the power. Those who are the oppressor, who have the power, and those who have the power but don't use that power to oppress the people that they are influencing. And a true king, a true president, a true prime minister, a true leader is a benevolent one, the one who actually has the power to do things but doesn't use it. Only when absolutely necessary, when his back is against the wall and leadership has to be shown, does he exercise it. Okay, and that is what Donald Trump is doing at the moment. He's exercising that leadership by virtually declaring martial law in the streets of America, because that's what it is. Sending in the military is tantamount to martial law, and that has never been done in America. It's never happened. And walking down the road of declaring every organization you don't like a domestic terrorist organization is a dangerous walk indeed, because not only does free speech go away, or the right for peaceful protest. And by the way, in my own defense, I've protested many times, NATO protests and all the many different stop the war protests. I streaked for world peace once. Never ever, not even in the times of South Africa, when they were using dogs and rubber bullets and tear gas, and when I was a young student on the campus, we never looted or burned down any buildings. I was at a demonstration where they burned the actual flag itself, this old South African flag. I was actually just watching at the time. I didn't actually burn the flag myself. I was part of that demonstration, but I can understand the anger towards the South African flag, and etc., etc. But when I talk about personal responsibility, personal actions, I've never hurt anybody in my life before God. I've never harmed anyone. I've never raped anyone. I've never burned any buildings down. Well, not that I know of. No, I've never burned any buildings down. I was a little bit wilder when I was a teenager. I accidentally set off a fire next to my house. But that was another story. I was very angry at my father at the time. But at the same time, it's like, I've been participant in all these protests, and I found the most effective protest, even when I was locked up and I had, I was under terrible oppression by fascists. I didn't resort to violence. What I used instead was my mind and the power of this written word. And I educated myself. I read books. I think it was 200 books in about 3.5 years. I didn't even go on the internet once. And I educated myself in the law. I basically mounted a legal case against the Ministry of Justice in the UK and took it to the highest court in the land, which is the Royal Courts of Justice, and I won that case. It's 580 pages I handwrit myself of evidence, hand wrote, which I gave then to my QC barrister. QC is Queen's Counsel. And I won that case fair and square. But sometimes, even when you fight for justice and you get justice, but you still have this stain, which is the sort of somebody says something that is absolutely untrue, and the stain follows you, and then you get ridiculed and you get persecuted, and it's really, I'm very much a man of the truth, and I believe that a man must have integrity and honor. And if you have that integrity and honor, and you believe in yourself, you'll get through it. And the moment of truth has come for many people around the world. What are we going to become after this coronavirus, after these racism riots? after the China debacle. All these things that are happening around the world are trying to teach us things. It's like the earth itself is trying to show us the signs that where we need to go, where we need to actually, the direction we need to be going in. And the direction that we need to be going in is through unity, not division, healing, not harming or hurting, justice, not injustice, peace, not war, and love, not hate. I mean, all those, it sounds like sound bites. I'm just thinking about Donald Trump saying those things. It sounds like sound bites to him. And then he walks over to the church and waves his Bible. If he's truly a reformed man, I'd take my hat off to him. And I'll give him a second chance. But what the people of America should be hearing from him is 3 simple words. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I'm listening. Instead of saying, telling and instructing and demanding and threatening and cajoling, he should be saying, I hear you. I understand. We've had 400 years of racism, 400 years of injustice, 200 years since the American Constitution was declared and whatever. And all this time is taken for black people to get their basic civil rights. And the same thing is happening in South Africa, but in the reverse way. It's actually happening in a completely strange way, completely. A lot of the white Afrikaners there, one of the reasons I started this political party was because, as I said, I'm against racism of any kind. Black against white, white against black, white against Indian, whatever. So that's how I'm wired, basically, and that's how I think. For me, there is no such thing as communism or socialism or capitalism. For me, there's only fascism and non-fascism. So if you think about somebody who's fascist, I'll tell you who that is. A person who is a fascist is somebody who doesn't listen, doesn't actually listen to what people say. And we spent years protesting peacefully, asking and no change, nothing, because the people in power don't give a shit. When I started the Stop the War movement, I was one of the, I would say, pioneers of it. Okay, in 1991, January the 1st, there was no Stop the War movement. Me and my girlfriend, we jumped into a football stadium that was live on television. 1 billion people around the world were watching it, and we streaked for world peace against the war against Iraq. But they still went to war against Iraq. And in 2003, again, 1 million people on the street against the war in Iraq. Again, they went to Iraq. And it just tells you, it kind of like explains to you, that fascism can call itself labor, can call itself conservative, can call itself, whatever they want to call themselves. But what fascism is actually, it's saying, I'm going to do what I want to do because I can do it, and I don't give a shit what you think. And that's basically what fascism is. And I have the power, you don't have the power, so I can do whatever I want. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, because there is justice. Call it a universal justice, okay? And if you believe in God, there's God's justice, and it equalizes everything. Somehow, in some way, those who are unjust eventually pay, and those who are, victims of injustice are eventually lifted up. And I was on this farm in Israel looking after these 26 dogs, Alsatians they were, for this crazy guy called Israel Orbach, who lost his daughter in a suicide bombing. and he thought he was a prophet. Anyway, I was looking after his dogs. They were chained to the ground, and I really felt sorry for them. And I thought, this will give me an opportunity to pray and to really kind of heal myself. Okay, I'm talking too much here now. Anyway, and there was a phone call. There was a phone call from the ex-Prime Minister's wife, Barbara Borter, to Jerusalem, and saying, they're killing us, help us. And Israel asked, what can I do? He said, pray for us. He said, and so we prayed. He said, she said, can you send somebody to help us? He said, yes, I have this guy, he's Robin, he's working for me, he's from South Africa, from your country. He's an Englishman, he's not an Afrikaner, but does it matter? And Barbara Borter is an English woman herself, and she said, no. And he poured a bottle of olive oil over my head, and he prayed for me, and he said, go to South Africa, go save your country from these horrible criminals, racist criminals who were killing and raping and burning white women and men and children on the farms. And I'm not a friend of the Afrikaner. I was bullied by them at school, and but I thought to myself, you know what? If I was Nelson Mandela, what would I do? I would fight against racism of any kind, against anyone of any color. So I went back to South Africa, and I wasn't embraced at all by the Afrikaner community at all. In fact, on the contrary, actually, they just rejected me because they said, "Oh, you're just an Englishman. What do you know? What do you know?" But I formed the party. I created the party, and registered it fair and square. And I got on the stage in front of the whole nation, and I said, "This party is against racially motivated violence." And it still is. That's the raison d'être, the reason for being. We are against racially motivated violence. And what we see in America now is racially motivated violence. Now, I don't care who you are, whether you're black or whether you're white. If you act violently based upon a person's race, because that person's a white man or that person's a black man, and you act accordingly, that is racism. And I will fight you in any way, shape or form possible. So what we're seeing in America is institutionalized racism. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't black racists. There's probably plenty of black racists. But what I'm saying is that in order for true reform to happen, you actually have to, retrain the whole police force and actually root out the bad ones and make them accountable. You don't see... of course, there are some deaths in custody in England, but generally you don't see. There's a procedure, which people follow, and if you don't follow this procedure and keep your discipline as a policeman, when you make an arrest, and you only resort to ultra violence when you absolutely have no choice, that your own life is being threatened. That guy's life wasn't being threatened. He had his knee on the guy's neck. He was supported by 3 other officers. The guy was on the ground handcuffed. Come on, it's like, no. So naturally, people will be saying, you violated my rights. You have looted the Constitution. You have looted my integrity. You have violated my integrity. And believe me, an angry man is an angry man, and an angry man can do anything, and it shows true character to be restraining. But I can understand that after so many hundreds of years, that lessons have not been learned. There's still this ignorant hatred that exists within the human heart. And what I will say about America is that it's a beautiful place, it's a great country, but it's also a sick country. It's a diseased country. And that poison that is in the heart of America has to be lanced, and that poison has to come out, and for the land to be healed. It's no good to just say, well, we're going to pray for America now, God bless America. No, that's not how it works. That poison has to be sucked out from the heart of America for America to be healed. And the greatest export, I can say, that America has exported is the rainbow family of living light, which actually, the vision was what happened right here in Morocco, actually, in the desert, by a guy called Gareth Beck, and then he went back to America and he shared that vision in the Vortex Festival in 1970, and they had the first gathering in 1972. And since then, these rainbow gatherings, we pray for peace and practice healing of the human heart, has happened all over the world. And I've been a great part of that over the years. Over 35 years now, I've been a part of that. I've organized, I don't know, dozens of gatherings, and that is simply because I guess that's my DNA. That's my destiny. That's my purpose. My purpose is to heal, not harm. And you will get challenges along the path of life. People will challenge you. People will lie about you. They will slander you. But you have to maintain what you truly believe in. And that is, if you truly believe in that injustice needs to be ended, there are ways and there are means, non-violent means, to end it. But some people are in such a situation of poverty, of mind, of spirit, of heart, they don't see any way out, because there's no leaders there, there's no fathers, there's no role models. Thanks to militant feminism, there's no role models anymore. They've disappeared. There's no leadership because there are no leaders. And we are all our own leaders. That's what the rainbow teaches us. We are all our own leader. But sometimes we need others to show us the way forward, the true and righteous path. And I thank God that I've been with people throughout my life. One of them is my father, who has shown me what leadership is all about. And in this case, leadership is not, in the short term, law and order. But in the long term, it's got to mean true, real, meaningful justice and change. And that change has got to happen within the human heart. And you can't just vote for that change. No. The change has got to come from a new approach to society. An approach of what I believe is sovereignty. We have to promote sovereignty, because sovereignty of the individual, the integrity of the individual, is sacred, sacramount. And if we violate that sovereignty, and if we take people's rights away by saying, hey, you've got to stay at home, and hey, you can't talk about this, and we're going to ban you on this, and we're going to take you away from this. No, you got to let the poison out. If you don't let the poison out, there's no way that the world will be healed, and you'll end up with true, domestic terrorism and true, frightening violence. So you've got to, this is the moment of truth now. The moment of truth is actually whether or not human beings have woken up to this incredible truth that we are all interconnected and we are all interdependent. No man or no woman is below or above another. We are all individuals which are dependent upon each other to survive on this planet. And this is the moment of truth. This is the Kairos moment. And if we don't get it, if we don't see it, and if we just resort to the old conservative ways of suppressing and oppressing and repressing, I saw it in South Africa. In the end, it doesn't work. It's finished. You end up with chaos. You end up with division. You end up with rioting. And if Donald Trump wants to heal the land, there's also got to come a big change from him as a leader. He's got to show the world that he's truly listening to the people. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you very much from Morocco. God bless you all, and God bless America, and God bless humanity, and God bless the world. Okay, thank you.